can't find the project location, so let me try again. So recent projects, oh, I know, okay. So let me get my RAID drive up, see if it's running, and accessing my other drive. Take a look at this guy. That's really weird. So going animation, TV, animation. Okay, let's set this project. It's lost my drive letter mapping, which is a bit strange. So I'm just going to pop back up here. Development, and in my content folder, props and vehicles. So I'll set that there. Earth vehicle, muscle car, Dodge Challenger. No, that doesn't feel right. I don't think that's where I had the original model. My drive letter mappings, okay. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. Not that guy. Oh, crikey. So, let's see, what's the best way to do this? All right, I'm just trying to set my project to where I've got that work in progress. I think I've got this synced. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to just double check here. TV, animation. Come on, man. Come on, come on. Now, I'm not entirely sure I've synced up properly to this drive, but let's have a look. Anyway. Nope, it's not in there. Okay, guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the be right back on the Twitch stream. I just need to fire up my PC downstairs because the project files are located on that one, and I didn't turn it on this morning. So I will be right back. I'll see you guys in 2 seconds. finishing up now. It is, yeah, so I've got until 5. Yeah. Another hour. Okay.
Right.
I'll tend to stuff you got. Okie doke. I also went and grabbed lunch. I haven't had lunch yet, guys. So, there you go. Okay. All right. So, while I'm waiting for that PC to fire up, I'll answer whatever questions you got going on here. What does it mean to be, let's see, a freelance animator? And I was wondering what it meant exactly. Actually, I'll fire this back up again. So I'm just going to answer a couple of questions. So, freelance animator. So a freelance animator means you're not tied to a particular company. One sec. So you're basically a hired gun. You're a mercenary, right? So basically what you do as a freelancer is you build a really, really good ArtStation presence or website or what have you. And you consistently post on places like LinkedIn looking for work. And occasionally you'll get people looking for freelancers. Freelancers are generally brought on board either at the beginning of a project to do pre-production, meaning they can let you go and then they can hire regular staff on, or freelance animators are brought in at the end when there's a large glut of work that needs to be done, not a lot of time to do it. That's when freelance animators are brought in. Or freelance animators can be hired by one or two different people. So for example, I was approached as a freelance concept artist for this woman who's putting together a children's book, right? So you can have anywhere from a single client to a big studio. Not sure how the topology on this looks. I'm thinking I'll need to move the ones in the center up a little bit. Yeah, it's not too bad, actually. It's not too bad. It's sort of tougher right when you get towards the edge, but I would always err in favor of evenly spaced, right? Always err in favor of evenly spaced. Never researched before. Yeah, they're kind of the same. I heard what sound. I meddled with it a little. Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going to see if I can access my drive now. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set my recent project to that one. That's cool. No error messages. So I think it's detected on my drive, and we'll come over here and I'll pop open. So I'm modeling my Dodge Charger all over again, but oh well, that's okay. It's kind of interesting. You got to look at a lot of job opportunities as opportunities to grow as an artist. So for example, I was baffled when I was hired for Need for Speed because I'm not really a car guy. I'm not really a gearhead at all. But the one thing I knew I wanted to do was learn how to draw cars and learn how to model cars because I'd never done it, right? So in a lot of ways, there's a lot that I took away from working on Need for Speed projects. Same with skateboarding. Yeah, when I worked on EA Skate, I learned to load, right? So it was a good experience. Let me make sure I've got Discord up as well. Okay. Come on, man. Yeah, Skate 3. Yeah, that's cool. I was just on Skate 1, but my friends continued on to Skate 2. I think by the time they hit Skate 3, maybe 1/3 of the original team was left. Oh. Yeah, I did some initial tests with a package called Euphoria, which would have made the ragdoll physics a lot more interesting, right? So you guys know ragdoll, right? I'm just talking about this while I'm waiting for this to be able to open, right? There's a company called Natural Motion, and they created this tool called Endorphin. No, it's not Euphoria by Calvin Klein. And Endorphin was amazing because now you could control your ragdoll and you could assign per limb behavioral, a whole per limb behavioral library, right? So as the character's falling, they could reach out to try and grab stuff, and another arm could pinwheel as they're going. And it was really, really realistic and believable. And Euphoria was amazing. I think when we got our first test bed of Euphoria, I just spent like an hour blasting forces at the character and watching the character fall. And it was a lot more entertaining than Ragdoll, because you could put panic behavior into certain parts of the body, and it was just really, it was cool. But they never got it implemented because they could never bring it down to 30 frames per second with Euphoria in place. So they had to default to Ragdoll, which was unfortunate, right? Okay, so I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to really quickly start talking about how I'm going to block this stuff out, right? So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get a little bit of this framework happening. So I'll probably start with the quarter panel here, right? So to do this, I'm going to stick a few of these objects into display layers so I can see a little bit better what I'm doing, right? So those are my construction objects, and I'm going to, let's pop open our thing here. I'm going to group these guys under tires. I meant the outliner. So in the outliner, I'm going to grab the tires group, and I'm going to assign it a new layer. That way I can turn it off, and I'll call this the tires, right? It just makes it a little bit easier to work with. I'll also do the same thing with my NURBS pieces here, right? I'm going to pop those. I'm going to grab the NURBS pieces, middle mouse button, drag it in here. This was my wing mirror, right? So, and did I instance it? No. But at this point, I'll probably take this guy, go to my space bar, and go to my front view, right? And in the front view, I'm going to just run a simple edit duplicate special, right? And I'm going to duplicate special. I'm going to scale it across the -1, scale it -1 across the x-axis, right? When I apply it, it'll, oh, and before I do that, I need to take the pivot. So to take the pivot, I'm going to hit the insert key, and I'm going to X middle mouse button, drag it to the center there, hit the insert key again to come out of that, and then I'm going to apply my duplicate special, right? And boom, it goes off to the other side. The quick way to group things is, I'll show you. You grab the wing mirror, control click another wing mirror, and then hit control G for group, and you've got yourself a group, right? So this is my wing mirror. It doesn't matter if you're quite granular about how you're organizing stuff, because you can always delete groups, unparent, and do all kinds of stuff, right? So the image planes, I'm going to control G that, and then I'll put that under image planes. And I'm going to middle mouse button move it up to where my construction objects are, because that's basically what they are, right? And I'm going to middle mouse button that image plane, pop it in there. So it's just, you know, nice and kind of contained. Go to the that view, and I'm just going to control G on this, and then call this glass, right? Nothing super fancy at the moment. I'm going to grab my wing mirrors, and we'll stick that in another layer. Right. That way we can turn the visibility of that off. This one's going to be, oh, come on, man. This one was my layer and tires. This one's a layer, mirrors. Right. Yeah, the mirror function under the mesh menu works, but what it does is it makes one big piece of geometry, right? So what the benefit of the instancing? Well, let me ask you, do you know why I do the instancing? Because of this, right? So I can come in here and I can right click. Yep, I can right click, I can grab, hit the B key to come out. I can grab a bunch of those, right? And then move it. Check that out, right? So that's why I do it. Okay, so the other thing I need to do is sort out why I've got the normals issue. But to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this NURBS object, because I don't need anything really super fancy. So I'm just going to come over to Modify, Convert NURBS to Polygons, and let's try a control point tessellation, right? That should be fine. Let's check it out. Drag that piece over. Yeah, that's good, right? Need to clean up that line work a little bit. I'm going to take this and I'm going to I'm going to take middle mouse button, drag this under construction objects so it vanishes. I'm going to take this NURBS to Poly object, put it under glass, and then I'm going to zero it out. Right? And here as well, I'll just do a edit, duplicate special, right? Create an instance and across the -1, right? In this case, it remembered the origin point, so it was cool. I didn't have to do anything to it. I can now go into object mode, select these guys. So why are they black? Why are they black? This is super important. Normals are the wrong way. Thank you. Right? So we want to go to, I believe is it under mesh? They moved it on me. Where is it now? It's either under edit or modify. No. No, display. Right. So display, polygons, normals. So. Oh, that's mesh display. That's there it is. Mesh display. And we want to flip the normals. So reverse them. There you go. Right? Uh-oh. We have an issue with our objects now. Why do we have? Okay, so this is worth investigating. I'm going to pop in here, take a look at this, and go to my display, polygons, face normals. Right, so the normals are facing that way. It's confusing because they're going all over the place, so I'm going to go over to my display, polygons, normal size, and make that normal size a little bit smaller, right? Maybe 0.07, right? So they're all inverted. I'm going to try this again. I'm going to go to mesh display and reverse. I could have sworn I done that. Okay, it probably didn't take the first time. Okay, so it looks deceptively smooth, but when we're taking a look at sort of line work from modelers, especially when they show a wireframe, we are looking for this. The daggies, the alligator teeth, right? So what we want, especially from a hard body modeler, is perfect line work, right? It's got to be beautiful from here and from here, right? So notice we've got, if we take a look at it, we've got nice curves here and then it sort of dips in. That's no good, right? Because that'll lead to rendering artifacts, right? Now, this is where I can really emphasize sort of the rule of thumb when modeling. Less edge loops, the better, especially when you're blocking your model out for the first time, right? Less edge loops, the better, right? Because can you imagine if you had 100 polys in through that windscreen? You'd be sitting there pushing and pulling it forever. What if you get frustrated, right? Because there's needs to be perfect. Good. What if you get frustrated because there's so much line work that you need to kind of sort out? Well, you can do this. Come in here into the edges, right? Am I still breaking up? Now I'm going to double click this edge loop. Hopefully I'm not still breaking up. Now I'm going to talk about one mistake that generally a lot of younger modelers make. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Do not press delete. Right? What you want to do is you want to right click, shift, right click, and delete edge. Right? You want to shift, right click, and delete edge. I'm breaking up a lot. Let me just check. I don't have any drop frames on my stream, my Twitch stream. So maybe if you guys go back to the Twitch stream, it'll be all right. I hope. Let's have it's the audio. Video is fine. Let's have a quick, I'm just going to have a quick look at the Twitch and make sure things are coming through okay. We'll make sure the subtitles are working fine as well. So it's this guy. And it doesn't look like my subtitles are going. I got to get in the habit of checking that. So I'm just going to pop over and make sure I've got these. Yeah, closed captioning is active in another tab. Okay. Okay, yeah, it looks like closed captioning is working. I'm hoping it's ending up on the Twitch stream. I'm gonna trust it. Okay, so here's what you do when you hit delete, right? So if I hit delete, it's gone, but I've just created a bunch of illegal geometry. How do I know that? Because if I right click and go to vertex, look, I've left floating vertices there, right? If we go back to object mode, you can kind of see it with the jagged lines there. If I right click onto edges here and I select edges, you'll have all of these floating vertices. And that's bad news. That leads to loads of different errors and artifacts at render time for your model, right? So never just select an edge loop and hit delete, right? Go shift, right click, delete edge. It'll make a clean deletion and it'll get rid of anything for you, right? So I can come over here and then, right click, go into edge mode, right? And then shift, right click, delete edge. Nice and clean. Now I've got polygons that are a little bit more evenly spaced and I've got less vertices to push and pull around. Because remember, right? We can always sort of add more edge loops to our thing if we need to, right? So if I come over here and I've got that selection, let's say I want to move it along, whoops. Whoa, it's a little bit of mouse lag here. There we go. Okay, so let's say I want to move it along a different axis than the world axis, right? We've got object axes, but I can also go component axis, right? Which is pointing in an unexpected direction. Or I can go to the axis and go and shift along the normal, right? Which will try to follow the surface normal as defined by my selection, right? Oh, that other vertex is going off crazy. But you can try and find different sort of axes that you can move along, right? Let's go back. Let's go back to object axis, right? You can see the problem though. We're a little bit off alignment, but that's okay. Now, notice when I'm zipping around, the image plane is getting in my way. Well, hence why I animated them, right? Oh, I didn't animate this one. So let's animate this one, right? So notice how I got them shifting positions, right? So let's do that for this guy. Oh, and this gives me an opportunity to talk about how do you animate the rotation of this, right? So I'm going to hit the S key to save a keyframe there, right? Now, with that image plane selected, I can rotate it, right? That's how you would normally rotate it. And then I will take this guy and I'll probably use the image center along the Z axis and animate that backwards, right? Yeah, that frees up the front, right? And then because I've got auto key turned on, it just saves it for me, right? So if I come over here and Oh, I forgot to save a key on the image. Axis Z. Center. I saved it on the transform channels by mistake. So it's somewhere around there, I think. Right? Oh, why is it not? Saves a key there. Oh, something is overriding it. Something is overriding that position. Let's see if it'll take sort of strict transform data. Great. Okay, so I'm going to set the transform key there and set another transform key there. Haha, getting unexpected results. That's always going to make my day. All right, let's zero this guy out. Key that. Okay, that's good. That's where I want to be. Okay, so this will allow me to, again, hit the F key, select my object, hit the F key, it'll pop into a framing, and it'll allow me to kind of check out the curvature and make adjustments here, right? So we can see that that's almost a flat line. So that's no good. We probably want to add curvature to that, but we also want to double check that. Let's double check that again with our front view. And I'm going to flip over to the front view of the camera. Yeah, so we want to come in here and grab these verts and then just bring them up a little bit. So we're adding a bit of curvature. Anyway, it takes a fair amount of time to kind of get this right? And these guys are arcing up, which is no good. That'll look really weird. So I'm just going to try and make that arc across a little bit, etc., right? So we got a couple of different ways we can approach the quarter panels, right? So I'm going to mix and match it a little bit, right? First, I'm going to grab this guy, edit, delete by type, history, modify, freeze transformations. Now, I'm going to state straight off the bat, I always prefer, if you press Control Delete, it should delete the verts too. Yes, that's true, actually. Yeah, it's one of those things that I never got in the habit of doing, right? And the reason why I'd never got in the habit of doing the press Control Delete is because I did it in the beginning, and oftentimes I would get confused and forget, just when you're going real fast, right? And you'll hit Delete instead of Control Delete. So I forced myself to do the Shift right click, because then I know exactly what I'm doing. If you know what I mean? It's kind of like how F-Track, when you try to delete something from F-Track, it forces you to type the word delete just to make you're absolutely sure you want to delete something, right? Okay, so let's talk about perhaps a different approach to modeling this piece here, right? So what I might do is yeah, let's go in and create a polygon primitive cube. And I'm going to go back to my side view. Right view, right. And we'll just move this guy in place. Right. Now, one of the things that I've found that makes modeling a car really, really easy, not easy, but a little bit, you'll get a better idea of how to approach it, is do it like they do in a car factory, right? So generally in a car factory, they pre-manufacture various pieces and then just slap it together, right? So I'm not looking at trying to create the whole car out of a single piece of geometry, although that can be done, right? I'm looking more at this kind of a thing where I make these pieces and I put them together, right? And again, the best reference on the planet would be a car model, right? So when you get a car model and the various pieces of it, let's see. They're not going to show a disassembled model, but you can approach it like a car model and then just create various different pieces. So in this regard, I'm looking for a good sort of area where the model is put together, right? So I'm looking at that seam line. I'm going to right click, grab the vertices here, grab those guys, move those over, right? Line that up. And again, right click the vertex mode, grab those guys, shift those over a little bit, right? So now I'm going to pop out my perspective view and I'm going to right click, grab the vertices of this guy, maybe grab this, pull that in a little bit. And let's go and line this up to the side of the car. Now, here's where real world reference will come in handy, right? Because we can't see where that ends up on the other side. Now, something that you guys don't know, but a wheel arch, as it comes over the wheel and approaches the front, actually starts to curve inward. It actually starts to curve inward this way, right? So you can't just line it up here and say, oh, it's probably the same on the other side. It's not, right? So I'm going to check my top view as well, see if I get a hint there, right? And so this is sort of difficult to line up because on the body of the car will come out, but then bell in again as well. So it's probably tucked in. So I'm sort of guessing that it might be roundabout there-ish, right? And again, it's just to illustrate the point that you're never going to get a perfect blueprint. You're never going to get, what you need from a blueprint, right? So let's use extrusions on this one, right? So I'm going to come in here. I'm not worried about the fact that I've got volume on this shape. I'm just blocking something out. I can always go in and delete the things I don't need. And I'm going to, I could extrude edge, but I think I'll just extrude face, right? You know what? I'll extrude edge. I'm just hemming and hawing because I want to show you guys as many techniques as possible, right? So we've done the extrusion of the face, right? When we were doing our building block out, right? So I'm going to come in here. Now I got to right click and go into face mode, and I'm going to select faces. And I'm using the rectangular marquee select, but I want to make sure that I haven't selected the front face. Here's something I do. Well, I can't show you with this, but I'm going to hit delete, and that should clean that all out, right? So now we've just got that side panel, right? So when I switch back to my right view and hit F to frame up on my object, ooh, my Maya is lagging really badly. I'm going to hit F here, right? So we go to this edge. Crazy. So I'm going to shift right click. We can now also extrude edge, right? So when we extrude edge, we can pull this guy out. We can pull this guy out. Oh, there we go. Right? And we can line this guy up, right? Now, I'm trying to think in advance about how I'm going to negotiate the wheel well as what I'm going to do going across the body just a little bit. Actually, you know what? You don't have to think about that because, again, we're just blocking it out. I think that's probably thinking a bit too much, right, at this stage. We are just trying to block this out super quick, right? So I'm going to come in here, and you can see just by manipulating a few points, life is a lot easier than if we had like a whole heap of detail to kind of concern ourselves with, right? So, and then that's all you do. So I'm just going to grab this edge, and I'm just going to hit the G key to repeat the last operation and extrude this guy over, right? At some point, I'm going to need to make some decisions, right? So what I mean by that is this line going to go straight across, or am I going to angle it this way right? So I'm likely just going to shoot that line across. I do need to stop and double check what my lines are doing in just a second. I'll show you what I mean, right? So I come in here, and again, I'm just sort of lining these guys up. That might be a little bit too much, so I'm going to lower this a little bit, right? Because I don't want to create polygons that are, or triangles that are too kind of stretched out, right? And there are rendering reasons for that, you know, tri-stripping and all this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to really quickly take a look at the perspective. Now I want to pop to the side, right? So I'm going to take the front view. Now here again, I'm going to have to guess. But because, did you notice I was very careful about how I pulled those points apart? I stayed on a single axis. This allows me to select these guys in this view and move them and know that I've got both vertices. I'll show you what I mean. We'll pop out here, right? It's gone straight through and grabbed the other verts on the other side, right? Because I made sure that these lines were perfectly straight when I was modeling them. Hey, kiddo. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to pop back to the front view, right? At this point, you should be realizing that there's no easy way around it. Modeling a car is painstaking, right? Especially if you want to achieve sort of Need for Speed level of quality, right? I shouldn't say that anymore because there's some car games now that just blow Need for Speed away. Sorry to my compadres out there. Okay, so back to the right view. So that's pretty much what I'll do. I might take a chance, grab this guy and just shift right click, extrude this all the way up. And grab a vert, right? I might actually just a little bit. Right. So there's a few things that I'm going to let you know. When it comes to modeling, cars, vehicles, weapons, humans, I never take the same modeling approach twice, right? Because, well, it's kind of like drawing. So when you guys are drawing, do you start with the head all the time? Do you start with the body all the time? Or do you change it up, right? So for me, it just keeps it a little bit more interesting, right? As well as I learn something new every single time by changing my approach, right? So I'm going to extrude this a bit, but I'm going to switch to my regular kind of move tool, right? And in this case, I'm going to go straight across, and I'll show you why, right? Because if I come in here and adjust this here, and adjust that here, I've got that, right? Then I can come over to my top view, right? And again, I can grab these two and then just tweak that in just a little bit, right? And then I can check that against my front view, right? And we want this coming down at an angle that way, right? Let's go out to perspective, make sure that's working correctly. Cool, right? And now we can always just pop back into our right view. And if we want to add a little bit more curvature, we can go to edge, shift, right click, or control, right click, edge ring and split, right? I know it's an old school tool. I'm just used to using it. There are other tools these days. I think that's why they've nested it, because it's an older tool. So they've buried it somewhere where I got to find it, right? And then we do that, right? And in retrospect, I think maybe what I might do is, yeah, let's shoot an edge loop through here. Why not? When in doubt, model it out, right? Shift, right click, edge ring and split. Boom. Now, why I like the edge ring and split is it finds the exact center, right? So I'm obviously need to adjust this guy, right? Pull that back this way. And I'm constantly trying to think about what's the best curvature to approach for rendering, right? So this one, unfortunately, has to turn the corner there, right? But we will see. The edge loops are not set in stone. They will change as you go along, right? And that's it. Very, very few curves to manipulate, right? You just kind of build on it this way, right? So that's one kind of method, this idea of extruding polygons and going that way, right? So let's take another approach to another part of the car. right? So I'm going to come over here, edit, delete by type, history, modify, freeze transformations, right? So this will be my front, left, quarter panel. Right. Any questions about that so far? Should be fairly straightforward. Nope, no questions. Okay, cool. All right. So, I was going to use a slightly different approach for up here, but yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to go to my right view. And yeah, do we want to do? Yeah, let's just make a NURB store, right? Actually, let's tackle the front. So what do you think in terms of the front? Should we approach it using NURBs, or should we approach it using polys? Sorry, kid, on another 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of things that you guys might not realize, right? Yep, approach it using NURBs because you have that smooth curves and things like that, right? I'll tell you what makes that kind of difficult is this sort of lower area, right? And discussing it based on the blueprints is not a good idea, right? So let's take a look at a Dodge Challenger, right? So I will constantly be banging on about reference material to you guys, right? So, no, this is not a Challenger. This is the Charger, isn't it? Yeah, it's a Charger. Okay, so let me find a good shot that we can discuss. That might be all right. Let's open this image tab again. Oh. Just to let you guys know, little anecdote. I'll give you this anecdote once we figure out how we're going to approach this, right? So remember, if we use NURBs, we'll get a nice, smooth, silky shape, right? But it might be, how would we do it? Would we curve that shape down this way with NURBS curves? And then what do we do here, right? It's going to be difficult to try to approach that. The curvature of the model needs to be modeled before you worry about the polygons. Yes and no, and I'll tell you why, right? And I'll show you an example once we get in there. But some of these shapes are quite complicated. Now, something that people don't really realize is that we don't have to, even though this whole front piece has been vacuum formed as a single shape, we can break it apart, guys. We can absolutely break it apart. This is something that is weird. Junior modelers get kind of a little anathema about it, right? But the more experienced guys will be just like, screw it. I'm just gonna cut it here, model that piece, cut that piece out here, model that separate, model that corner separate, then stitch it together, right? Yes, singular shapes and then stitch them together afterwards. Absolutely. That is not the right way to do it. It's just a way to do it. And it's the way I like, right? Because I get frustrated trying to model this whole thing as a singular shape. It's just because there's so many twists, turns, the curves do unexpected things, and you're just pushing and pulling at it forever, right? So this bottom shelf, right? I'll just model that as a bottom shelf and then jam my struts into it, right? And then try to figure out what I need to delete and how I'm going to connect it all up together, right? Now, notice when we're taking a look at the 3/4 view, we can come up with a little bit of a clearer strategy of how we're going to model this. Now, at Electronic Arts, when we were modeling the cars, there are two things that happen. Number one, the producers thought they want to get the most accurate car models, right? So they did what are called cyber scans of these cars. These huge units. Cost them, I think, $1 million per car. Something crazy, right? So they did these cyber scans. And the mesh we got back was accurate, but it was completely unusable. It was just a complete mess, right? It was a point cloud. So certain things like where the scan couldn't figure out what the wheel well was doing in here, it would just web the geometry across and just look like garbage, et cetera, right? So we'd have to go through and retopologize all of that. We retopologized one car before, actually it was Mike Olson, who was one of our lead car modelers. Mike Olson said, look, I'm gonna go out and spend $30 on a little model car that was like yay big, right? And he bought that and got budget to buy a whole bunch of them, and then we paint them all white, and then we go with a Sharpie marker and we do our topology lines on the car. And that was our pre-planning, right? So I recommend that for you guys who, if you're really serious, buy a car model, right? Take the pieces, you don't have to put it together. Take the pieces, paint them white, and then take a Sharpie and draw your topology lines, right? Then when you dive into a modeling application, you'll have a clearer idea of what you want to do. I don't at the moment because I'm hunt and peck searching for my line work. But if you take a model car and you draw on top of it, you'll have a clearer idea of how you want to approach this, right? So I'm going to show you just quickly how you stitch things together, right? Because that I think is a sort of an important next skill. So let's say we want to come in here and I'm going to create a polygon primitive plane, right? Just going to move this guy over. And I'm going to rotate this guy 90 degrees. Oh, negative 90 degrees. Right. And let's scale this bad boy down. Woo. That's a huge plane. Whoa, yowza. 0.01. There you go. Let's bring this guy down to size. Move him into position, right? Again, I just want to show you how to connect objects together. Yeah, let's just do that. So I'm going to come in here, go into perspective view. I've got that there. I'm going to go to my front view, and let's move this guy out. Whoops. Select all that, move it over. Right. We can also check the alignment of our car against the blueprint. Yeah, that's okay, right? So now I'm not going to mess with the angles of this just yet, because I know that it's perfectly at 90-degree angles. So if I do an extrusion, the extrusion will react predictably and go up, right? So let's get our extrusions in place first, right? So I'm gonna extrude an edge, pop that up, right? I don't know, make another one, and another one, right? Now let's get our verts sort of lined up. Move this over this way. Now you can see I'm just pulling in one axis for the time being, right? Because I'm a little bit wary of making sure. Yeah, let's pull this guy down. So I'm going to start to alter the shape of this, and then we'll move this guy up. There we go. So a little bit of a joining piece there. Let's move this guy down so we got better kind of distribution of the shapes. You know what? I'll just leave these guys. Here's a quick tip on how you line up a bunch of vertices, right? So I'm going to go to scale and then scale this right down to 0 and snaps it all in line. I'll leave that like that for now, right? And then we'll go to obviously our front view. Let's chuck in a quick curvature. Okay. So I'm going to bring this guy out this way. Let's hop back into our perspective view. Yep, that's cool. So I'm going to go back to my front view. We have a bit of an issue with non-planar faces, so we're going to have to deal with that. A non-planar face means, you know, a face that's sort of twisted, right? And you don't want something that's sort of twisted. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to do my scaling trick where I scale this right down to 0. And it's not moving for me. Unless the twist is from the bottom too. Okay, there's a weird angle there that will need to be kind of sorted out. Okay, so I'm just lining that up real quick. I just want to show you quickly how we join the two pieces together, right? So if I want to stitch these two pieces together, I need to make sure they're one piece of geometry, right? So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to select these two guys. I'm going to go edit, delete by type history, modify freeze transformations, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my modify, or go into my mesh and mesh combine. So now that's one piece of geometry. But the minute I do that, Maya also creates a transform group node just to remember where those objects were originally, in case you change your mind. So Maya's doing this to catch your back a little bit. But you can go through and edit, delete by type, history, and modify freeze transformations again. And then that's gone. You just have that one plane, right? So I'm going to come over here, and whilst in object mode, I'm going to shift right click and go to my append to polygon tool. The append to polygon tool is one of my favorites in terms of polygon modeling, or used to be back in the day, right? What this does is allows you to click on an edge, click on the opposite edge, and it just fills it in for you. Then you hit enter, there you go, joined up, right? So using the append to polygon tool, you can create custom shapes as a starting point, right? So then I can take a step back and go, you know what? I don't like how the line work is going, so I can make my fine-tuned adjustments here. We did have an issue with coplanar faces I'm gonna have to deal with, but now I've got a nice little piece that I can work with, right? Here I might actually bring this so it's a little bit more, just from experience, I know that at the top of this wheel arch, I probably want this to be straight, right? And position that. And so on and so forth. It's really literally like panel beating the metal side. When you're polygon modeling, it's always panel beating things into shape. Even when I'm doing characters and I'm modeling the back of their head, I feel like I'm panel beating all the dents and stuff out of their head, right? Now there are other tools that are available for this. You know, if we get into ZBrush hard body modeling, there's all kinds of really, really cool tools that'll allow you to do that. I have got a problem in terms of the geometry here, right? So I've got some nice face loops. A face loop simply being a set of faces that form a strip, right? But I have an issue here where it forms a kind of diamond shape, right? So I'm going to have to figure out a different way of modeling that, right? So yeah, that's append to polygon tool, right? To customize that shape, right? Now, you'd want to spend a little bit of time, again, kind of panel beating this into shape. This is probably where we need another edge loop to get rid of the coplanar faces a bit there. I'm back behind my image plane, but thankfully I got it keyed, right? So I can move it out of the way and do my thing. You can see right there the non-planar face or the torqued face. That's bad, right? So this is something you want to come in and correct. I was wondering how long you were planning to discuss all this. I want to stay. Oh, no. That's it. I should be done. At 5 so we can get shopping at McDonald's. If you need more time, then I'll let them know. No, it's cool. I'm done at 5. I wanted to teach you guys not how to model the whole car, but give you the tools that I think you'll need. So we discussed NURBS modeling, we discussed face extrusions, edge extrusions, and I talked about the append to polygon tool. We also created the tire shape using a revolve, right? So I think that is all the tools that you guys need, right? Now, if you need other tools, you can investigate other poly modeling techniques. Don't follow a car tutorial if it's long and laborious, right? All you probably need to do, actually, the best thing to do is to just pop into YouTube, right? And then just do a search for hard body modeling techniques, right? And you'll see a boatload of tutorials about hard body modeling, right? So little mechanical shapes and things like that, right? But if you follow a car model, car modeling tutorial, they're usually hours and hours and hours, right? Oh, right before I let you go, I did manage to speak. We had a meeting with James. This is a good one. Maya hard surface modeling complex shapes, right? But again, you'll notice that a majority of these hard surface modeling tutorials are all polygon based, right? So I showed you a few NURBS tricks in case you want to incorporate that. But if you want to do your car or whatever hard body model assignment you want to submit as entirely polygon, that's totally cool, right? You don't have to do this mix and match of techniques. You can just use one technique and do it all, right? I could use this edge extrusion, face extrusion, append to polygon for the whole car, right? You don't really need to know much more than that. What the hard body modeling tutorial gets you comfortable with is just this idea of navigating around and working inside of a 3D context, right? Oh, and the last thing I was gonna talk about. No, I'll leave it at that. I will do a quick little stream about UV mapping, or maybe I'll touch on it in our animation class really briefly, because UV mapping is one of those things that I'll constantly kind of readdress. It takes a while to get used to the idea of UV mapping. So let me save this off, and I'll kill the stream. So Alia or Alia? Alia? Yeah, you can take off. That's totally fine. I'm done. And I'll stick around for the rest of you guys to talk about the conversation with James, right? So I'm signing off on the Twitch stream here. Hopefully that's given you enough tools to kind of start building something, and then we'll take it from there.